Uh, did you want to start off the pod by jumping in with one of your ideas?
Yeah, sure. I can start with my current one and then work backwards if you want. It's called Global Health Core Incorporated. I thought about it in February. Then I sat on the idea and prayed it would just come to life, which it didn't, which never happens in startups. But around March, I was like, okay, I got to get something going. So I put in the papers and I'm like, okay, I want to incorporate rapid access. I'm like, oh, this is a nice title. And I just kind of Googled random titles and I got rejected. Apparently, that was not a descriptive enough title for a health tech startup. So then I applied again and again. And I think on the fourth try, I came up with Global Health Core. So just kind of popped into the air. What it does and what its purpose is to help patients. I was an emergency room volunteer for about 3 years, and I found this was during the height of pandemic as well. So I found it later, but the reason was in the pandemic. I saw patients that were struggling in the emergency room for waiting 20 plus hours just to get care. And I found that to be ridiculous, especially because you're already struggling. I saw kids in the lab just crying. I've seen elderly just really confused onto what the process is, what's going on, why exactly they're waiting over 20 hours to receive care. And it was just a mess. And the pandemic was like that. But on top of that, the system should have been able to somewhat handle a pandemic in some sort, because it is a healthcare facility. You should have some sort of support for patients to get through it. So it's not a foolproof idea, but Global Health Core aims to limit the wait times in emergency. That was the core idea. It's an AI-directed chatbot first and foremost, so patients can put in what kind of condition they're in or what symptoms they're having. And from there, we direct them to the best place to receive care, which isn't always emergency. That's a key thing that a lot of people think. Run to emergency and it'll solve all your problems, which, first of all, is not an answer. Second of all, you probably wouldn't get care unless you're super, super emergent until much later. So those 20-hour wait times you could have pulled out if you went to a walk-in clinic, specialty care, virtual care, family care. And a lot of people don't have family physicians, which is why we try to give them that virtual option as well. Once we direct them to these places, before they get to go, they have a database of live waits of those locations. So not only do they decide where to go, but they decide how long they want to stay there for. So it helps them in their process and they can focus on why they're there, which is the healing and the getting better in the process.
Interesting. Do hospitals already do they already know what their sort of like wait time is? Is this something they already keep track of?
So as a volunteer, we had access to this kind of like chart. Not all patients had access to it, but we saw once they were checked in with their health card, how long they'd been waiting. That's how I know the real numbers compared to what's put online. So a lot of hospitals, they do have online stats that you can check on their website, and it will typically be 1 to 5 hours. You'll never really see much more, maybe 8 max, but that isn't the real time. They just kind of average it out so that it doesn't show it. Whereas on my side, I'm like looking at the screen at the back and it's eight hours, and I've seen the patient who's next up waiting like 20. And I'm like, this just doesn't add up.
Right. Yeah.
For some reason, we had to go into the emergency room because it was on a weekend and our family doctor office wasn't open up and the local clinics weren't open up. And then we just had to go to that hospital because we were in the area. And the walk-in system, as you're just being assigned they had a red, yellow, and green system where it's just like almost like a traffic light on how important or like how much of an emergency that what you're going for into the emergency room is. So just to figure out that process on whether if you're assigned on a green, yellow, or red, it took us 2 hours. And
Yeah.
it's a series of conversations that you're having with 3 levels of different individuals.
Yep. That's actually the first part once you go into emergencies as well. It's triaging. So what they do is they see who is more emergent versus the other. So if you're basically on the verge of collapsing, you're obviously going to be more of a red versus if you just have a stuffy nose, you'll be a yellow or a green even. They don't do the same color system. It varies from hospital to hospital and institute to institute. But the overall idea is to get triaged, wait, register, then wait, and then go back in and see an actual doctor or a healthcare provider. But that whole point of waiting in between these whole things causes a lot of time delays in you trying to get care. So we're not trying to focus more so on the red and like the orange people. We believe they still need to get to emergent care, and that can be emergency rooms. What we're trying to focus on is the people who are more green or yellow and can go other places and avoid waiting those long waits, so that the people who are red can stay there, wait less, and the people who are yellow and green can go to faster care and just get helped.
And it's like, so it would have helped so much more during that day, because I think we were there for over 5 hours to go through that hospital process, only to find out from a doctor at the very end on the last 30 minutes of the 5 hours that, oh yeah, it might have been a small fracture, but it's not anything that's broken in your bone.
It's not easy. First of all, you're trying to figure out what the problem is, and then you have to wait so long to figure it out. And it's not helpful, or you're already struggling. The more complicated it is for you to find an answer, the harder it is. It's not actually, I find, the actual figuring out what's wrong with you and the waiting after that. That's the problem. It's the before. It's figuring out, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And the questions you'll ask yourself from I don't know to when you find out. That is the most anxiety-ridden moment for patients in hospitals, in walk-in clinics, anywhere, and even before they reach a healthcare institute. So I'm trying to help as much as I can to reduce that anxiety so that they don't have to experience that again.
I think to a level, the immediate low-hanging fruit in this area is multilingual, just like having multilingual explanations, because I think like in Canada, we're one of the most diverse countries in the world. And sometimes we do have to take into account that, if we just provide multilingual services to explain how the process works, or like how we can expedite the process and just like get in different languages. Even like this year, we have so many newcomers or new Canadians just moving into the GTA or Vancouver. They might just not know the healthcare system of the levels of clinics or family doctors or other specialists that they can just go into instead of just going into the hospital for everything.
Yeah, completely. And especially because there are a lot new immigrants coming into such a diverse place like Canada as well, which is where I'm from. It's really nice to be able to have a community that can communicate with you and you're not just stuck on a specific language. So with our AI chatbot as well, one of our key priorities is being able to be accessible to communities, not just by language, but by any disabilities that they may have, whether that be, I once presented the idea to someone who was visually impaired, and she said, please, I want you to make sure once you build this idea, I think it's great that somebody like me or somebody who's deaf or has any other disability can happily and easily use your service. So that's something that should never be pushed to the last, I find. So we're working on that alongside and in parallel for our AI and everything that we do at the company.
Are you inspired?
Yeah, that's
Josh.
Yeah, that's gonna have a huge impact. It's gonna have a huge impact on patient experience. Just I think me personally, like I'm so driven away from going to the doctor and, especially going to the hospital for anything like that, except for, when there were situations that I've had to go, where you end up in the ER because you like hurt yourself or something. And then you realize that, it takes a really, really long time, especially if you're in any urban area, it's unbelievable. But yeah, I think that Runda is going in the right direction with get this low hanging fruit of maybe to increase adoption in hospitals, just saying, hey, this is how we can help you provide these more wide services to a more diverse population. And then, past that point, that's where then, you can sort of sneak in these things of like, oh, hey, like we can also integrate in with your, your wait time system, and we can totally, overhaul that and, take it from there. And yeah, that's an idea that I think could actually make a huge impact on so many people if it has an uptake strategy.
Yeah,
that
sure.
That actually works. It makes me wonder if there's a viral angle here that could lead to the uptake.
Yeah, for sure, of course. And you were talking as well about you don't realize you need something until you're in that situation. Mine,
Yeah.
healthcare thing was just an idea, and I'm like, okay, I'll build a startup. Ooh, so cool. Until I fell down the stairs taking the laundry down, and then I fractured my ankle, and I'm like, okay, I think I need some support. So I went to my local urgent care center. So it wasn't even an emergency, it was an urgent care. And I was like, okay, it's kind of hurting. Can you get me some help? And I had to wait like 4 to 5 hours just to figure out if they could do an x-ray and then figure out from there what was wrong with me. So at that point, you're just like, what do I do? And when I was in that waiting room, I could have used something like Global Health Core, where I could just go on the web, search it up, figure out what the other options were for me instead of being like, oh, let me always have this app downloaded. That's something we stray away from. We just want you to be able to use it when you need it. And our financials will reflect that as well, and how we're trying to do the subscription model and everything like that, and so that it's easy for patients.
Yeah, I think that it gives an opportunity to also address, some areas of the medical world because they're technologically behind. Like, just the whole triaging system, having this, three color system that determines on how bad a patient needs care. And I mean, like, it's so obvious when you go into a hospital, and you're going through the system. It's like, oh yeah, the more that I overplay what's going on with me right now, the better chance I'll have at getting care before all these other people in line with me. But the thing is that everybody knows that. So everybody's just like overplaying each other's things. And it just seems like it's a system that's not working because they don't trust the human that they're speaking to. But if you can, but I think that if you can use, tech like this to accurately and more empathetically measure who needs care faster, and to send them in a way that maybe it would be better to take humans out of the equation and to just be like, yes, this is what the third party is deciding goes through. And I think that could help sort of answer some ethical questions that kind of pop up when you're in emergency rooms.
Completely agree. I've seen that so many times. They'll just be like, oh my God, when's my wait? And like, you're still like 2 patients down the line or 10 patients down the line. They're like, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit extra unwell. And I'm like, you can't speak to me. You can speak to the triage nurse. And then all of a sudden they get there and they're just like, oh my God, I can't do anything. I'm like fevered all of a sudden from 10 seconds ago. So I get it. They need care, but it's hard. It's hard for everybody.
I got a immediate, simple kind of content idea or like initial content push for an app like this. When Isha mentioned that, well, what do I do? It's that entire catchphrase is such an insight. So I just imagine while pushing the app for like the AI agent on just like help you figuring out what do you do. And I would probably do like a series of these content on just like, I don't know, fell off the stairs or something. And then you figure out that you can't move your arm anymore. Well, what do I do? And then you just like speak to the app, just typed in, what do I do? And then just doing these infomercial style, just like quick pace barrage of like, here's what you can do. XYZ, are you feeling like you definitely broken your arm or something? Or is it weekend right now? Because here are all these specialists that you can immediately go to, and then spinning into the direction of where you can drive to, or what local clinic that you can reach out to. And just like by telling you what you can do, that's just like such an insightful catchphrase. Because even for me, when we had to drive to the hospital that day, I didn't even entirely know what can we do. So just like positioning as like during your simple medical care or healthcare, during like what consumers think is emergency, just answer, here's what you do, or have the initial content catchphrase of these like awareness video pushes or simple 15-30 second ads to just like create these content asking, what do you do?
Yep, that's a great idea. No, I didn't think of that actually. So I will definitely let my marketing team know. That's amazing.
Like, hey, should you even go to the hospital? Like, well, no, there's this walk-in clinic that's open up down the street from you that'll probably talk to you in 10 minutes. So yeah, that's a great idea.